Hello, good people of the internet. God, it feels good to say that again. So, the episode you're about to consume is actually a bonus episode of sorts for the Unlearning Playground. This is a conversation I had with Ripudaman Bhardwaj of the Most Serious podcast when I was invited over as a guest on his show. The conversation centered around the topics of God, spirituality. We discussed truth, utility, and I don't know what all. And it was such a stimulating conversation for me that when we finished recording, I asked him that I would want to share this with my audience too. And being the open guy he is, he shared all the details with me, and here the episode is for all of you too. So make sure you watch it till the end, make sure you enjoy the episode, make sure you get stimulated by what we talked about. And I'll drop a link for the Most Serious podcast in my show notes below. So make sure you check out the podcast afterwards. But for now, let's get into the conversation.
The first question that I want to ask this guest on the Most Serious podcast today is: are you a philosopher turned computer scientist or a computer scientist who turned philosopher?
Man, Ripu, that will be a hard line to draw, to be honest. I think the part of me who was just a philosopher or just a computer engineer has already died. I mean, it's just there is murky waters now. But yeah, it's I'm a culmination of all of it. Yeah, that's the answer. That's the honest answer.
We were thinking of many topics, and Chetan is one of those people whom I think there are a plethora of topics you can talk to, and he always has something to say. He always has an insight and opinions and just information on most of the topics. But we thought ki aur kya cheez is, so interesting in a sense that you can have so many different opinions, you can have so many theories on it, and that's the concept idea of God. And last episode also I was talking to Dr. Vineet Agarwal on a Hindu god Hanumanji, and we thought of ending, having a conversation in which we can discuss God. What is, what is God, who is God is another question, but what is this word called God and where does it come from? And Chetan, just blow us away with your knowledge.
I'll try my best to. Yeah, I think whenever we are talking about the idea of God now, I think now that we're talking about it in 2023, and I'm assuming everyone who's listening already has an idea of God in their minds, right? I don't have to put it forward. It's already implanted into almost everyone's mind. So the way I like to start that conversation is centered around the idea of what is not God. मतलब क्योंकि what I understood, all of the wisdom I gained from books, meditation, and all that jazz, was that if you really want to get a glimpse of reality, you have to unlearn everything you have been taught about God. And this is actually a quote from a Christian book, I believe. There's a friend of mine who forwarded it to me, and it's so true. I mean, and this is true not just about the idea of God, it's true about the idea of a lot of different things in our lives. Truth evades us because we think we already have it. And in that sense, to actually get to the truth, you have to unlearn those filters. You have to unlearn that idea that is already implanted in you. So if we are approaching the idea of God, I would start with talking about what is not God. And okay, murky waters, let's dive into them. So I think, dekho, people can use different kinds of words about the idea of God. But I think generally, almost everyone has the idea of God as a creator. It could be that you talk about, let's say, Hindu gods. So there are different supreme beings, but then even they bow down before the God, right? Or a God. So the idea of the supreme God always in, I think every religion has centered around the idea of there being a creator. There being a creator who has created everything, who's managing everything. And to take it even slightly deeper, the idea is the creator away from the creation. So there's a God who has created this world and is away from this world, right? I think, if I'm being honest, that is the idea of God that I always had in my mind while I was growing up. Even though being brought up in a Hindu family, this is not the idea of God as such in Hinduism, but that is God whom we worship. जिससे हम डरते भी हैं. There's an element of fear to it. There's an element of worship to that God. It takes different forms, but at the core of it is the idea of the creator away from the creation, who's created everything, who's all knowing, all powerful, and who manages everything too, right? Now, wo idea, I think it's an idea and it's not true. And I think there's a
Okay.
very simple way to think about it. So let's say you say there is a creator. There is a creator away from the creation. And let's say the answer is yes, okay, there is a creator. Shouldn't the next question be who created the creator? If you're
Yeah.
talking about things being created, there is supposed to be that question. And why stop at the first recursion? Okay, so let's say you say, okay, there's another creator above that, and that is the God. But then the question still remains, who created that creator, right?
Mm.
So at some point in this recursion, you will end up saying that this creator just exists, right?
Yeah.
You will have to say that, that
Yeah.
is God. Now, if you say that, you're basically subscribing to the idea that something can exist without there being a creator, without there being the need of a creator to create it. Something can exist, right? You're agreeing there, right? If you
Yeah.
say there's a creator who can exist without there being being a creator above him, you're saying something can exist without there being a creator. Why
Hmm.
didn't you start with that idea, right?
Uh, no, I'm not following up this. Like you're saying
No,
that you're saying that why don't we start with the idea of believing that there could be some things that exist without them
not
being
some things,
created by someone?
everything. Yes,
Oh,
everything. Life in general, life with a capital L. We created the idea of there being a creator, right?
yeah,
And then we said this creator just exists, right?
yeah.
Why not start with the idea that this thing itself just exists,
Oh, yeah, that's
right?
interesting.
And see, why I'm saying that is because um see, whenever we are talking about God, whenever we are talking about religion, it's almost always that if you have that conversation with your friends, your colleagues, or anyone else for that matter, I'm pretty sure the end result of that argument is going to be you have your opinions, your beliefs, I have my opinions, my beliefs. Let's just leave it at that, right?
Yeah,
That's it, right? That
yeah.
that is the only level moral ground that we achieve in a normal conversation. And I believe that to be a dishonest answer, man. Because see, there are some things that are subjective truths. Like, for example, you might say you might say jazz music is better than rock music, and I might
Yeah.
say the opposite. Both of those are subjective truths. For you, it is better. For me, it is not, and that's fine, right? But something as universal as God should not be a matter of personal opinions. If all you have is
Mm.
personal opinions about God, you have that. You have personal opinions, but you do not have the truth, right? God, the idea of God itself is supposed to be an objective truth. It's not supposed to be a matter of opinions. जब आप opinions पे आ गए, that is going to be a matter of belief, right? And belief ऐसा हो जाता है कि I'm switching between Hindi and English, but
Yeah.
just coming out.
Mhm.
Belief is something that I think somewhere deep down, if you're believing in something, if you to believe in something, somewhere deep down you already know that it is false because you have to put a belief on
Uh,
it. You,
okay.
you don't know the truth about it, right? You don't know the truth about it, but you have to believe it. That word itself, the word of belief, I mean, I'm not totally against it, but I hope you're getting what I'm trying to get at. I'm
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to
yeah, of course.
get to objective truths, right? God, the idea of God is supposed to be an objective truth, not a matter of personal opinions, right? So
But let me
that
let
is
me let me just stop you there and just wanted to
mm,
ask, like, who gets to decide that if this is the objective truth? Like who will be the, like, do we as a society, or do we just
mm,
as a group of people commonly agree that this is the objective truth? Now everyone will have their challenges and, you know,
mm,
their opinions against this also. Like, who gets to decide when you're talking to a bunch of people?
mm. It's always been us human beings, man. It's always been us human beings, and we will have to see. There are some things that are objectively true in the sense that I am here in Bangalore right now. You are in Gurgaon right now. It's
Yeah.
not a matter of subjective opinions. It's not a matter of
Ah,
people
yeah,
agreeing
yeah,
that
of
I'm in
course.
Bangalore or you are
Yeah,
right. It's just true, right?
yeah.
It's just basic. I would say basic logic or basic gyan or whatever. But it's just basic logic. People don't have to agree that I'm in Bangalore and
Mm,
you're in Gurgaon. We
yeah.
are in Gurgaon and Bangalore, right? So something that is objectively true is objectively true. But to answer your question that who gets to decide, I would say that it's always been us human beings. There is no one coming from outside and telling us that this is what is true, this is what is false, right? So it's always been us human beings. It's always been two people or multiple people sitting down and talking about life and everything else and coming up with answers and then subjecting it to other people, subjecting it to maybe an honest and open conversation. And if something new comes out, something new comes out. That'll be the truth then, right? That'll be the objective truth. So we need to be open to more ideas, right?
Yeah, that's
You
very
getting what I'm
important.
saying, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, of
So
course.
that's basically it. It's always been us human beings, and there are things that are away from subjective opinions. जैसे मैंने Bangalore, Gurgaon, the example, it's not a matter of opinion, right? Those words are a matter of opinion. You call this Bangalore or Bengaluru, you call that Gurugram
Yeah.
or Gurgaon, etc. Those words don't matter, but there is a reality to it which is not subject to opinions, right? That is that is where the conversations around God should go towards. While usually if you're talking about God, it's like a Muslim guy will say, I've read this in the Quran. A Hindu guy will say, I've read this in I don't know which book. A Christian would come over and say, I've read this in the Bible or whatnot, right? And then all of the arguments that come out are mostly arguments from authority. It's like, I have read this in my book, and my book is what has said the truth, so this is the truth, agree to it, right? That is not how you reach objective answers. That is not how you have honest conversations either, right? So that is why, from my honest perspective, whenever I start a conversation about God, I started from the idea that I know it's 2023. Almost all of us have very deep rooted ideas and beliefs and opinions about God. So let's try and unlearn them first and then see what can really be God, what can really be creator, right?
But don't you think
Hmm?
that there's value in, like, so this brings me back to the whole idea of maybe why did almost everyone, since you're saying like it's 2023,
Hmm.
everyone has some opinions, everyone has
Hmm.
some things associated when they hear the term God. So
Yeah.
don't you think there it is it is a function of this conditioning that people sought value in that, having that opinion when you hear about God, or maybe having that
Hmm.
certain level of information
Hmm.
or association once you hear the term
Hmm.
God. So like
Yeah.
there
Hmm.
must be some value that also happens. Of course we can unlearn and then maybe try to reach out for more answers, but
Yeah.
do you
Yeah.
think that just by being present in the system, that everyone
Hmm.
gets their first
Hmm.
input insight about God from some
Hmm.
places? But of
Yeah.
course I
Yeah.
guess that's the journey that everyone starts from, and then maybe through the realization of, or maybe through the curiosity of, now all of the
Hmm.
people are not as curious as maybe philosophers were. And
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
we were talking about this only earlier, that
Hmm. Hmm.
how philosophers actually do end up spending their life so differently, and life maybe
Hmm.
has a
Hmm.
very different meaning when it comes to philosophers. Like you and I,
Hmm.
maybe
Hmm.
we view life
Hmm.
as something else, and for them it's a whole
Hmm.
different experience. What
Yeah.
do you have
Yeah.
to say to
That's
that?
true. That's very true, man. I mean, there is definitely value in the idea of God that we all live by, right? There is value to be had from scolding a child and saying that if you do not behave in such and such a manner, such and such a God will do such and such a
Hmm.
thing to you. There is value to be had there for sure, right? You can put people in line, you can align them by certain values, which are not all bad, right? But then look at it the other way as well, man. Those are also the things that limit us, right? Those are also the
Hmm.
things. For example, if I say, if you subscribe to the idea of God with the idea that there is something to be feared from, which is what happens with, I won't put a number to it, but majority of people, right? Everyone fears that idea of God.
Yeah.
You make yourself vulnerable to be exploited by so many people who are just waiting for the opportunity to do that, right? And
Hmm.
if I care about you, if I care about you, man, I can tell you that what you are fearful of is not true. I mean, now it's maybe it's up to you. Maybe it's up to our society as a whole to adapt to this truth. But if I care about you, if I love you, I will have to tell you what's true, right? And then we'll
Hmm.
figure out how to put that into utility. But what's true is true. And while there is while there is a utility to be had out of what is false, what is limited, I would not use the word false, I'll just say limited. There is utility to be had from what is limited, but utility is not really the test of truth, right? If something does not seem to be useful to you,
Yeah.
maybe it's just how we have designed our lives that even the truth is not practical anymore, right?
Can you double
Now,
click on that and like
mm,
explain what you're saying?
yeah, I'm trying to say that utility is not the test of truth, right?
Okay,
It,
what does
it's
that
it's
mean?
like that means if something is true, it's not necessary that it will also be useful to the
Ah,
person
yeah,
to whom it's being told, right?
of course,
Because
makes
like you
sense.
said, we all view life from different angles, right? Let's talk about, let's say, the Maslow hierarchy of needs. There is a hierarchy of needs that all of us have. If there is someone whose basic needs are not being met, this conversation to them is absolutely worthless. It's useless,
Exactly. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right. But that does not mean we are not talking about the truth, right? It does not mean that what we'll arrive in this conversation is not true. Correct. To that
Yeah.
person, it might seem that it's useless. Don't even talk about it. But it does not mean that this is not true, right? And now I'll also extend that a bit. When that person will come up in that pyramid of hierarchies, when that person will have his or her basic needs met, then maybe this truth will become useful also, right?
Mm.
So that is why the human endeavor should always be to speak up and talk about what is true rather than what is only useful. There is utility to be had in talking about things that are only useful and practical, right? But there's also a need within us to talk about things that are just true and then see where is the utility in it. And I think there's a lot of utility to be had in this conversation, in getting to the idea of God, which was actually originally being transpired to us.
What do you
Mm,
think that like everyone has, you know, I kind of find it very fascinating that almost everyone was born with a certain sense of curiosity, and that is
mm,
kind of evolutionary also. That has been an aspect which led us to us getting from 3,000, 5,000 years ago to till here, and how
yeah,
we've
yeah,
adapted and how we've grown as
mm,
a species.
yeah, yeah,
So this curiosity, I've always wondered that some people, of course, follow up more on it. Some people go to taking their curiosity to creativity. I think there's a huge correlation
yeah,
between those, because you only want to
mm, mm,
wander into dangerous new territories only if you're curious. And that
mm,
sometimes
mm,
leads to being super creative. Like an artist, maybe in the search of creating great art, they
mm,
end up creating creativity and curiosity, they go
mm,
hand in hand.
yeah, yeah,
So what do
yeah,
you
yeah.
think is like, is it tied down to people being more curious, to tending them to kind of have that ability to create more, or to be in more touch with their artistic side?
That's a bit of a segue. I think
What does
yes,
it,
it
what
is.
does segue mean? I'm sorry.
Segue means that if you are on a road, you tend to take a direction away from it. So, I mean,
Oh,
we
okay.
were talking about the idea of philosophy and God, right? But yeah, this is a segue in
Yeah.
that sense. But I will touch upon it. Um, yeah, I think, see, it depends on the life situation you are in as a person. Like I just mentioned, if your basic needs are not being met, you don't give a damn about the curiosity that is arising in you about life or whatever, right? Roti
Yeah.
kapda makan chahiye, and that's basically it, right? Now, see, what I deal with when I call my channel the Unlearning Playground and talk about unlearning a lot is that because we have almost all of us have operated at that level at some point in our lives, we get used to that idea. We get used to that this is all we have to do. This is all what life is all about. You know, and we tend to behave in a manner as if those basic needs have not been met even now, and that's
Hmm.
that's how we behave throughout our lives. So even if there is curiosity
Wow.
rising within us, even if there is a certain sense of there is more to life and all of these questions coming up within us, we tend to feel कि नहीं यार, this is not the right time, this is not the right time. अभी तो
Hmm.
मुझे और पैसा कमाना है, अभी तो I have to do more, I have to travel more, and I have to do all of those other jazz. And उसके बाद I'll act on these thoughts, उसके बाद I'll act on those curiosities. And that may be true for you, that may be true for you. Cannot put an objective number to it ki once you're
Yeah.
25 you should be talking about curiosity and whatnot. But The idea is that more often than not, it is us ourselves who are restricting our own curiosity, right? So it could be your life situation, but it could also be your own ego, your sense of I, what you identify as. And us wajah se, we don't get to act out on, let's say, the deepest things that move us. And that is where art comes from, right? What moves you
Yeah.
comes out in the form of poems, it comes out in the form of books for some people, comes out in the form of YouTube videos for some people, and etc. Right? So,
Sometimes I feel that
mm,
this part of like what makes an artist is maybe them expressing what they actually feel in a manner which
yeah.
is accessible to everyone else. And
Mm,
it sometimes it feel that as a society now people are more conditioned to suppress or to not cater to that part of them which kind of makes them stand out of the crowd, and everyone is almost
and
kind of losing their own
mm,
uniqueness in a sense that they
mm,
don't even want to show it, they don't want to display it, and they're too scared
mm.
because of the judgment of, and the judgment also comes from like, again, that
People like
I don't
us.
know. Yeah, of course
It
it
it comes
comes
from
like,
everyone.
it comes from everyone.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and one thing that we can circle back to. This is brilliant, man. Where does that judgment come from? I'll go out on a limb and say that it mostly comes from the idea that you were talking about in the very beginning when we started our conversation. We tend to feel there is no utility to be had in doing this, because the utility that we want to see is all the practical, how do you make money out of it, how will you
Yeah.
uh, climb up the social ladder and all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
And
of course.
art does not directly give you that utility, right? Writing poems,
Hmm.
writing books does not directly give you that utility, right? And that is why y- one is that you will be judged by other people and therefore you repress those thoughts. The other is also you yourselves might not be seeing any utility to be had in trying to express yourself. Right? It's a
Yes,
double-edged sword
yes.
already. You might be restricting
Actually,
yourself. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Don't you think that,
Mm,
how are you so cognizant of these biases that you might go on? Like, I really like the way you just put the situation in two perspectives. It could either be
mm,
this, and it could be
mm,
either you not finding, because sometimes it's almost like the communication is always happening from outwards to inwards, and it's almost like the
yeah.
world is telling me not to follow up on my passion,
Mm,
or the world is telling me to
yeah.
go get money. But
Mm,
maybe you
yeah.
don't sit with yourself and identify that I am kind of
Mm,
restricting myself to this worldview and
yeah.
not
Yeah.
entertaining the other because of so many
Yeah.
biases that we've accumulated.
Yeah. And that's mostly the case, man. And you know what? I'll tell you why I can say that with authority. Even if the outside world is saying all of those things to you, to act on those things is a choice that you are making in the moment. It's your
Hmm.
own choice. Ab, people can debate that till the end, till they're blue in their faces. Ki, nahi, this is not a choice. I am in this way because I was born this way. My parents conditioned me this way, etc. But almost all of that is a story. It might be true, but it's a story. Hmm. And now, whatever has led you to April 2023, whatever has brought you up till here, is a part of that story, and there could be so many external people to blame for it. But whatever happens from here on onwards can be your own choice. You know, that is why I can say it from authority. Ki, even if there are other people telling you not to do all of these things, right? You acting on that is a matter of choice. Even if you did not realize it till now, it is a matter of choice from now on from you, right? And what I mean by all of that is ki, the only action item you can draw from these two perspectives that we talked about, whether it is the external world restricting you or whether it is you restricting yourself, you can only act on your own thoughts and actions, right? You cannot control the other people. No one can,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that will never happen for anyone, right? Talk about anyone who has followed their passion or had courage to go out on a limb and do things that other people weren't doing. Do you think the external world was catering to their ideas initially? Of course not, right? It happens for no one. But what distinguishes people who end up following their pursuits is that they chose to do that despite of the external conditions, not
Hmm.
because of
Yeah.
it, right?
It's a
If
conscious
the external
choice.
conditions, it's a conscious choice. If the external conditions were suitable, it, almost a lot of people, a lot more people would have done it. So it's a good way to actually approach it, right? My
Hmm.
idea is that the external people in themselves should try and let other people express themselves, right? Not hold their judgments about others too much. But that is kind of a utopian idea jo kabhi hoga nahi, right?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
more than the external world, your actions should only be derived ki what can I do in the moment, right? Let go of others. Despite of others, do what you want to do, right?
And maybe this is the filter which, like, why this is not a utopian world is maybe this is the filter, this is the price that you have to pay in
Hmm.
case you want to express yourself at that level.
Yeah.
If maybe this is that filter that.
And that is what makes the utopian world for you. That is what makes the world subjectively utopian for you. There is never
Yeah.
going to be an objectively utopian world. At least I
Ah,
don't
of
think so,
course. Yeah.
right? But subjectively, for you, you can make us a utopian world for you, right? And that involves not just the goody goody pleasures that we imagine कि यार utopia हो गया तो we're all sitting in the garden and eating fruity apples और सब बहुत बढ़िया चल रहा है. That's not what life is anyway ever going to be, right? It's always going to be sine curves. So you go up, you come down, you go up, you come down, and you accept this as a fact of nature. You accept this as a fact of life, and act on your deepest thoughts, act on your deepest actions, and keep your mind open. And that's subjective utopia.
Can you tell me more on, because I love this. I am taking these two words with me for post this
Hmm.
conversation as well, and I'll try to maybe
Hmm.
think
Hmm.
more about them, which are truth and
Hmm.
utility, and the difference
Hmm.
between them. Because it's significant, and it doesn't hit you till you consciously think about it. Like for me,
Hmm.
it was
Hmm.
almost synonymous before thinking about it in the search of truth. That truth is essentially useful only, and that
Hmm.
truth and
Hmm.
utility are not correlated as much as I think. So,
Hmm.
what do you
Hmm.
think is a man's basic need or search or the urge to go out and create or be just curious about? What is the urge? Is it a man's search to find meaning, truth, or is it to find utility? What are we trying to find?
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think there's an objective answer to it. ऐसे
Okay.
we can build stories about it, right? It'll be a
Hmm.
story. I can tell you that what people are looking for is let's just say actualization, enlightenment, and etc. All of that is true, but that can look different for different people. So in this regard, I would not want to go into object as if there is some objective reality to it. I would rather say it depends on the person, right? Which is why going within and understanding your own person is very important. What do I
Hmm.
mean by that? Dekho, you wanted to talk about truth and utility, right? If I tell you that such and such is a truth, right, you might find zero utility in it. There is another person who might be sitting right next to you who might find a lot of utility in it, right? What is the difference? The difference is your I in the sense the letter I, your ego, what you identify as, what Ripu understands himself to be, what Ripu understands life to be, right? And उस filter से होके everything goes, even whatever is true, whatever you find out to be true just now, that is the filter that it goes through, correct?
Yeah.
Right? In one essence, I'm trying to say that you see the world as you are, not as the world is, right?
I love this quote.
Hmm?
Yeah.
Yeah, everything goes through that filter, which is why the first job of actually growing up, of becoming an adult, of actually trying to go towards what is true is to go within, understand this I, understand these filters that are pre-installed in you, got installed in you while you were getting conditioned by so many things, and get installed in you as and when you keep on going through life, right? This is a continuous process. But becoming aware of all of that is step number one to actually getting to what is true, even. Because for all you know, there could be a truth right in front of you, but you might be rejecting it only because you think कि नहीं, this is not true. There's this filter in front of you. वो जैसे example देते हैं ना कि this donkey who's being carried forward by his master, he
Oh,
does not
okay.
see
Yeah, they
anything
have
away
these
from this, right?
blinds. Yeah.
Yeah, you cannot see away from this particular angle. Now it might seem harsh to people that I'm talking about donkeys and them in the same line, but what I mean to say is I think you understand, right? If this is a filter in front of you, you cannot see anything else. And to make you see anything, to make you see the utility in even the truths that we're talking about, first these blinds have to be removed. That is step number
Hmm.
one to growing up, right? If you do that honestly, it's an uncomfortable process, man. Getting to know that you yourself are wrong, you yourself are limited in what you
Yeah.
find to be absolutely right. Talk about any person who's very religious. If I was to talk to them about God in the way we talked about initially, it offends, I'll put a number to it, 99.9% of the people. And why does it do that? It's only because they have subscribed to that opinion so much कि they don't even want to listen if it could be wrong. And it hurts us. It hurts
Yeah.
us कि, you're kind of hitting me. You can use different words. तुम मेरे religious sentiments hurt कर रहे हो, or you're hurting my family's sentiments or whatnot. It's actually your own ego. I'm not hurting any nationalistic sentiment or anything else. It's your own ego that is getting hurt. And you have to grow up to see that that is what is happening with you. But almost all of us don't want to do that. But almost all of us have to do that.
Yeah, it's almost one of those. See, like I sometimes feel it's very hard for you to sell meditation in that regard also,
Mm,
because it's
mm,
one of those, you'll do it once and then you'll realize the importance of not doing it all along. You'll see, like you'll
yeah,
realize ki how much you've missed out on. Maybe that's
yeah.
maybe that's the again trade-off. Once you kind of
Mm,
realize that once you start
mm,
being more open to ideas, more open to life,
yeah,
at that moment only you realize that why you should have started doing this very earlier. But till that point,
yeah,
because you're not able to see the world in that manner, it's very hard
yeah.
for you to kind of open yourself up and be vulnerable.
Very true, man. Very true. But then anyone who actually believes that, ऐसा लगता है ना कि if you are maybe, let's say you're already 30 or 40, and now you're saying, yeah, I'm already too late. What is the need now? What is the utility now? Now that we're using that
Yeah.
word, what is the utility now? I'm already 40. I'm already married, have kids and whatnot. The idea is that जब जागो तब सवेरा. Whenever you wake up, that is the morning. You can still choose to wake up, and the remaining, even if it's just one more year of your life, that remaining 1 year of your life could be very different compared to what it would have been if you weren't awake, right? So, see, whatever has got you till April 2023 has already happened. What happens from here on onwards is going to be a matter of choice for you. And you can choose to be awake at this moment. And that is all that matters now. Ho gaya. 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, everything has gone by. Whatever is up, whatever will happen now, all that matters is this present moment, this conversation that we're having right now. That's all that matters. Baki sab story hai, right? So that is what
Yeah.
you have to unlearn.
So see, but
Mm,
like as we're nearing the end of this episode, I came to
mm,
remember this one thought that I was having recently. It was like when we quantify life, we say my life had so many days or so and so years, and
mm,
divide that by 365, or like you get how
mm,
many
mm,
days you've had and things like these. So now
yeah.
I also thought that, is it I had so many days in my life, or I had life in so many days? It's kind of, which sentence are you saying?
mm,
आपकी जिंदगी में
l-
इतने दिन थे या दिनों में उतनी जिंदगी थी,
mm,
मतलब it's one of
yeah.
those.
So this is actually, like I mentioned, right? It's a video that is going to come out on my channel, but so be it. Let's have the most serious podcast habit first. So what I'm talking about is कि there are three perspectives of looking at life in general. बहुत ही broad spectrum लेते हुए. The first perspective, also kind of the lowest one, is like life is a race. It's a race
Hmm.
with others. So
Yeah.
someone has earned so much money, I have to earn more. Someone has had so many trips, I have to do more. Someone has a beautiful wife, I have to have a more beautiful one, or a husband, or another partner, whatever, right? Somewhere it's a race with someone else, you know.
Yeah.
So we can understand that about a lot of the materialistic things, and we say that, okay, I'm not in that race, but we are in a race with others for even good things. For example, sometimes he has done so much charity, I have to do more. I don't have to do
Hmm.
charity because I'm it's moving me and I have to help others. I have to do more charity because someone else has done more. So even in good regards, you tend to look at life as a complete race. Every time it's a race with someone else, this is like the lowest perspective of life. It's a practical one. Again, talking about life situations, hierarchy of needs, may if you're at the lowest level, you may have to compete with others, and you do, right? It's practical. A second way of looking at life, slightly above it, in fact, a lot above it, is life is the journey of my own self. So
Hmm.
it's about me improving as a person. It's about me doing more, having more, doing better, having better, things of that sort. But it's my own journey. The the parameters are not defined by others, right? uh, it's a caveat यहाँ पे. It can be that you are using these words, that they are life is my own journey, but it could also mean that you're looking at life as your own journey, but you're still looking for validation from others to
Yeah.
actually say that, okay, I have progressed in life. And
Mm.
if that is the case, you're still at the first level, you're not at the second level, even if you're using those words. But the second level, we can understand, you look at life as it's my own journey. I don't have to, others are involved, but I don't have to care about what others think about me to realize my own self-worth, right? That is the second perspective of looking at life. The third perspective of looking at life is what you touched there. Now it's kind of, it's, I would say it's one above the other, but it's also third perspective aisa hai ki it's something that encompasses everything. And what is
Mm.
that perspective? Hear me out. Life is like a dance. It's like a
Okay.
music. Hmm? What do I mean by that? See, the purpose of a dance, the purpose of a music, it's not the end. Nahin? If that was the
Mm.
goal, if that was the goal, all the music awards, all the dance awards would have gone to the person who just ended their dance beautifully. You know, matlab
Mm.
the end step was so good, the ending music was so good that you blew us away. That doesn't happen, right? The purpose of a music, the purpose of a dance is to dance. It's to sing, it's to listen, it's to enjoy. You know, that is the purpose of music and dance. You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that is what life is also all about. In the sense that if you look at life as a dance, it's a series of moments, and you have to dance at that particular moment, and that's all that matters, right? The story forms itself. The story of what the dance was all about, it forms itself, right? Now there could be those moments in your life when everything happened so magically beautifully that whatever you had choreographed for yourself just happened, right?
Mm.
For an extended period of time, let's say a few years, or like what happened in a previous call. It was just, it just happened beautifully, right? But at the end of the call, there was that aberration. Camera nahi chal raha, mic nahi chal raha,
Mm.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
Those things are also a part of life, right? It
Mm.
happens. It happens. You were dancing and you wanted to, मेरे साथ तो बहुत होता है, wanted to move my right hand but left move हो गया, wanted to smile but frown कर दिया, right? नहीं आता यार dance करना, whatever, but you get it, right? So dance, it's like there would be some moments for you when the dance was just so perfectly choreographed, and or it would look as if it's so beautifully choreographed, it's just happening. On some other moments, it will not be that, but you realize that this is a part of the dance itself, right?
Yeah.
The meaning of the dance is all of those individual moments. It's a moment by moment thing. It's not the end of the dance, right? But somehow we, because we are so involved in our stories, we want it to be the best story out there, right? And वो ऐसा लगता है कि story का end बहुत amazing होना चाहिए. That, because that is what stories are meant to do, right? The stories are meant to come to an end, give you a beautiful conclusion, so that you can draw something from it, right? But that is not what life is all about. Life is more than a story. Life is about a dance. It's like a dance. So the purpose is to dance, right? And if you connect it with what you were saying, how many days did you have in your life, or how much life did you have in
Did
your
you have
days?
in your days?
It's like,
Yeah.
right, in all of, considering that statement, that each single day is like each single step of the dance. So
Mm.
whatever you have to do in this moment, that is all that matters. Do your best in this moment, and your life, your dance, it will take care of itself, right?
I
So
think that's
yeah.
that's so like that's such an important concept if you
Mm,
can sit with it and if you can spend some time on it. And I think it's not
yeah.
talked about more. Like sometimes I feel that
Yeah.
there could be again so much value could be derived out of teaching or sitting with patients, and like the
Yes.
idea of patience and being patient and being
Mm,
kind and being grateful and having those
mm,
values. Maybe
mm, mm,
how can we more incorporate them more in our society or in our conditioning or the way we grow up or the way we grow on or the way we keep moving with our lives is having
mm,
more conversations of these sort, having more
yeah.
having being more empathetic towards people
Mm,
in a sense that you can
mm,
try to understand where they're coming from or trying to understand, because in that journey I
yeah.
believe what a person can, like the extent to a person will go for themselves is very less when compared to the extent they'll go for a society or they'll go for a group or they'll
Mm,
go for another person.
mm,
Sometimes I
mm,
feel we are
mm, mm,
so uh, complicated
caught
or
up
we are so twisted in that manner that we'll do less for
mm,
ourselves and we'll do more for the community or
mm,
for more for the people.
mm,
So in
mm,
that sense, I sometimes feel ki more of these conversations, more of these ideas and more of these concepts, if people try
mm,
to sit with them and people try to
mm,
talk about them, then it kind of
yeah,
makes looking at things and just having a perspective about life, it makes it so much better, it makes it so much clearer,
yeah,
that you can kind
that's
of
true.
move
That's true.
on and
Yeah,
have an opinion of your own about this.
yeah. I- I- And that's something that we've touched upon so many times in this podcast, right? Utility. Every time
Hmm.
you talk about these things, I'm pretty sure if you talk about this to your friends, even who are occupied in either their jobs, in their marriages, in their studies, and whatnot, there is something on the other that keeps you occupied, that tells you that all of this philosophy and spirituality and religion and self-awareness and biases and everything, it has no utility in my current life, man. It just has no utility. And and
Yeah,
and, and it's coupled with the idea that there will be a time when there will be a utility, right? So
yeah.
jab aayega, tab I'll tackle all of this, right? But for almost all of us, when that happens, we are miserable because we are so
Hmm.
used to looking at life from a single perspective, like that donkey we talked about. Ki when that does not serve us anymore, that is when we start looking for answers. And ठीक है, अब उसमें भी you can say जब जागो तब सवेरा, right? Whenever you had to find you find the answers then. But yeah, the job of a friend, the job of a lover is to actually tell you what is true, is to actually try and awaken you if at all they see that little spark in you. And if that happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, well, we move on. Life is like that, you know. It's like those
Do
series
you
of
think,
moments.
yeah, do you think that
Mm.
people talk more about philosophy or people tend to talk more about Gyan when they're happy or when they're sad? What do you think?
Mm. I think for some people it happens when they're sad, yes, but it's it's a double-edged sword, man. It's like a lot
Yeah.
of people try to let's say if you're really sad, some people think that if they drink a lot of liquor now, it will
Yeah.
just go away, right?
Yeah.
It might go away in that moment, but it's never it's like just a band-aid that is stopping the
Hmm.
blood from flowing, but it's not going to heal you, right?
Yeah.
And in that sense, if you're sad and you're talking about, I don't know, maybe you start to use a lot of things as a band-aid. Like for example, a lot of people believe this idea of sab moh maya hai, right?
Hmm.
Sab moh maya hai bol ke you just think ki अरे सब बेकार है ये, um, falling into relationships, talking about everything philosophical and सब मोह माया छोड़ो क्या फर्क पड़ता है and all of that. So
Yeah.
it's like we're doing the same things that we do with stuff like liquor and drugs. We do the same things even with philosophy if we are sad.
Hmm.
So but it can also mean, I said it's a double-edged sword. So if you're sad and you're actually now understanding that, man, something is really messed up and I need to fix it now, right? If that is the motivation that comes in you, and if that is what is taking you towards philosophy, man, there is no better movement for you. I mean, this is where
Hmm.
you have been planted and you will only go up from there, right? So it depends. If you're happy on the other side, I think happy in the sense that if things in your life situation are aligned, those
Hmm.
basic needs are met, and you're understanding that, okay, I've achieved such and such. I don't need to worry about my survival now. Maybe I can start looking at life. Maybe I can start looking at what were those religious and spiritual people talking about? What did the Buddha say? What did Jesus Christ say? And whatnot. And maybe that leads you towards a more expansive understanding of life. And then you can maybe even end up um, let's say transpiring that to other people, right? Because that is what I see happening for a lot of us. You heal yourself and then you heal others, right? So
Hmm.
it can happen on both ends of the spectrum. Even if you're happy, even if you're sad, it can happen on both ends of the spectrum, right?
Have you read Naval Ravikant's that Almanac of Naval Ravikant, that book?
Mm. I've heard of him, I've heard of the book, but I haven't read it.
So I also didn't like read it in a traditional sense. I
Huh.
finished the book. I just read
Mm.
bits and pieces and the parts that I found
Huh.
interesting. And this is the journey I've
Mm-hmm.
been on with books now. I just read
Mm.
only the portions that I find worth
That you
reading.
find utility
So
in.
yeah, I don't know that I
uh,
find truth in
mm.
maybe. I don't know, but these two
Good,
words are
good.
very, very, very useful, man. Like, I just think that there's such a good lens to measure things or to look at things on from
Mm,
now on.
mm,
Is like, am I
mm.
trying to find truth or am I trying to find utility? And you can choose one purpose and
Yes.
you can go to that extent, and maybe that will serve you
Yeah.
well. But
Mm,
coming
mm,
back to
mm,
what I was talking about, that book, Naval
mm,
Ravikant's Almanac of
mm,
Naval Ravikant. So he has two sections in that
mm,
book: how to make money and how to be happy. So happiness and money
mm,
are the two sections in that book. And he
mm,
talks
mm,
about happiness, like one of his when he was on the Joe Rogan podcast, he also was talking about
mm,
that if you are so smart, why aren't you so happy? So if
mm,
someone is
mm,
so smart, then how come you
mm,
haven't figured out how to be happy? It's like
mm, mm.
no one not wants to be happy, right? It's a state of
Yes.
being in which you'll feel good, you'll feel
Mm, mm,
just
mm,
in place, aligned, and
mm,
everything.
mm, mm, mm,
So
mm,
what do you think that sometimes maybe over communicating about ideas or
mm,
philosophy and talking about things kind of takes a detour from uh, actually being happy, being present, being appreciative of the moment, and trying to more
mm.
like kind of what do they have that word called, precision से बिल्कुल किसी चीज को एकदम nitpick करके बनाना.
हाँ
And sometimes you
हाँ
get
हाँ हाँ
too
yeah.
deep into that. So this is what I feel about the philosophers. Like most of the philosophers, I've never heard a philosopher ending a very
Mm,
their life story ending in a very happy or in a very
mm,
sunset
mm,
kind of
mm,
manner. It's
mm.
almost everyone, they died by a suicide, or they drank
Oh
till they were
yeah.
dead, or they lost their mind in the process. Sometimes I feel ki for the average person, it's just you
Mm,
have a little bit of this and you can just be blissfully ignorant about the
mm,
rest of the stuff.
mm. See, that's one way of how I want to answer it is ki, see, we really want to optimize for being happy, right?
Yeah.
Happy in the sense, जैसे you look happy right now, man, right? मतलब
Hmm.
you look as if there is a lot of pleasure and आपको अच्छा लग रहा है, and you feel
Yeah.
happy right now. We want to optimize for that. We want us to always be in that state. But if we talk about what is practical, it's that you cannot be always in that state. Right? It
Hmm.
just never happens. It can never happen for any person that you're always happy, right? So one of the things that should be taught to everyone should rather be कि life flows in the form of sine curves. सबको पता होना चाहिए. Even kids should know that. Kids know that intuitively. They don't have the words for it, but it goes up and down, right? So you cannot always be optimizing for being happy, because when life comes
Yeah.
at you and you're at the downward curve, what do you do then? Do you just blame others? Do you just blame the situation? Or do you take hold of it and bolo ki nahi, I'll take it to the next upward curve? You know, you cannot always be happy. You know, so that is one angle I would want to say. But I think the way Naval would have used the word happy, it would not have just meant feeling good overall. It's like
Hmm.
if you are in an acceptance state, an acceptance of also what is, in the sense that it goes up and down, right? Even if I'm down, an acceptance ki okay, I'm down right now, I'll remain equanimous, and things will look up maybe in the future. It will happen, right? What I have to do right now is all that matters. I'll do that. And in this kind of a state, you are in a more equanimous state with life in general, and that is happiness in one perspective, you know. But what you were touching upon was what we say in Hindi ki baat ki khal nikal de. You said so many things, you said so much कि you never really got to the point, which is what
Yeah.
usually happens. It happens because, see, even when we are talking right now, we don't really have an agenda in mind, right? We're coming up
Yeah.
with things. आप कुछ पूछ रहे हो, I'm saying something. We don't have a particular agenda in mind. If we were to do that and only stick to that, we'll get to somewhere, right? We'll
Hmm.
get to something if you want to talk about a specific thing. Hmm? But if you want to talk about something as broad as philosophy, like we talked
Hmm.
about last time as well, philosophy just means love of wisdom. There is wisdom to be had in so many angles. Ki, how do you stop? How do you really stop? You cannot stop there, right? So, in fact, वहां पे जाके where you stop is maybe you draw a line at what is really having utility. You know, that is maybe where you can actually draw a
Yeah.
boundary. Ki,
Yeah.
if you cannot see any utility beyond this, maybe just stop talking, man. In some sense, so ऐसा कर सकते हो, है ना? पर वो it's again a double edged sword. It's again a double edged sword. If you are not seeing a utility, maybe there still is some, right? So
Listen, I
Huh?
had a very crazy thought once that
Mm,
sometimes imagine this. So I read this
mm,
quote in a book. I think it was from Buddha or some old philosopher only, that
mm,
every person that you meet on this planet or in your life is trying to teach you the perfect level of patience, the perfect level of love, perfect level of wisdom. So every encounter that you'll have with everyone on this planet in your life, everyone is
mm,
trying to
mm,
teach you, to just get you to the perfect level of patience, love, wisdom, kindness. So imagine now, from that context, now every interaction you've had, everyone who's trying to maybe piss you off at that moment, every situation where
yeah,
you felt unpleasant, they were just trying to
yeah,
teach you, to get you to that level. So
yeah.
yesterday or maybe some days back, I was thinking about this, that what if, like, it's kind of just crazy to just imagine, but this is like a good exercise, mental
Mm,
exercise, that
mm,
what if you imagine, if you see people around you and you can try to think of them as maybe, everyone could be just a version of how you could have turned out to be. So you look at the world and you see so
mm,
many reflections. Imagine like
mm,
8 billion reflections of Chetan Nara. Every person
mm,
on this
mm,
planet is one possibility of how you could have turned out to be.
mm, mm,
And this,
mm,
because
mm.
there's endless, because there's endless life, creativity. There are so many, you know, attributes to a person that you can't contain them. And
Mm.
this is very crazy, but it felt like a good mental exercise, that everyone on this planet is just another reflection of how you could have
Yes,
been.
this is absolutely true, man. You've kind of hit on, I would say, one of the deepest roots of even spirituality for that matter, because it is actually true. If you let go of, see, we started with the idea of God. Let's try to uncover that idea a bit more, and I'll tell you why I'm saying that. See, if we are talking about what is true, if we are talking, you remember we started the conversation of God, and we started by saying ki, if there was a creator, आप पूछते कि is there a
Hmm.
creator's creator, so we're understanding कि the idea of there being a creator away from the creation is false. It's an idea that we have created. We can let go of that. We can understand that things just exist. You know,
Yeah.
does that make me an atheist? No, I'll come at that. If we want to inquire about what is true, forget God, forget who created everything. Let's just talk about what is true. The only thing that maybe we can agree on is that I exist. What do I
Yeah.
mean by that? Even if you are in a simulation, let's say there's this idea, right? सब लोगों को ऐसा लगता है, कुछ लोगों को ऐसा लगता है कि we are living in a simulated world. It's a computer simulation, right? Even if that is true, even if all of this is a simulation, I exist in that simulation. So the only thing
Hmm.
I can be absolutely certain of is that I exist, right? That is the only thing you can be absolutely certain about. Correct? You're understanding, right?
Yeah,
Following
yeah.
me? You
Hmm.
know? So now, if you want to explore what is true, you have to explore your I. You have to explore yourself,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Right. So if you try to uncover those layers, if I ask you who are you, you will say Ripudaman, right?
Yeah.
But Ripudaman is a name that your parents gave you, right?
Yeah.
What else is true about you? Who are you
Hmm.
really, right? You have to uncover all of those things. And when you go deep down into those roots, you will really just understand ki, like you were mentioning, there are so many attributes to a person ki, let's say there are, put a number to it, 60,000 attributes, right? And
Hmm.
for every single person it comes out in different degrees and different permutations and combinations.
Yeah.
So in that
Right.
idea, the difference between you and me, the difference between a person and another person, is one of degree, in the sense that one of those parameters is more
Yeah.
tuned up in you and is less tuned up in me, or is
It's
equally
like a
tuned up in
matrix
both of
and
us.
it has different values. Yeah.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly, right? So you can understand that is really how similar you are to almost everyone around you,
Oh,
right?
yes. Makes sense.
You're
Yeah.
not that different from others, right? And
Hmm.
that, the idea that inspires in me is a lot of compassion, right? Because you can understand ki this person is going through something that maybe I do not really understand, in the sense ki I've not experienced it, but I can understand in the sense that I can visualize ki if such and such was a case with me, maybe I would have also reacted in this manner, right? So
Hmm.
that makes you compassionate, that makes you empathetic towards the plight of other human beings, right? And if that is not a utility, I don't know what is, man. right? And we arrived at a utility starting from the truth. You know,
Wow, yeah.
we were uncovering truth, and we arrived at a utility, right? This is the exercise that philosophy is supposed to uncover, right? We are not supposed to talk about philosophers. We're not supposed to talk about कि इस भगवान की पूजा करके क्या होता है. Do we need to worship this god? Do we need to keep so many fasts and what all? मतलब जो भी चीजें हम religion के नाम पे करते हैं, everything that you see being practiced in the name of religion is basically games that the ego plays. It's basically games that we human beings play, and that is the reason why people who are actually looking to get to the truth turn atheists. I did that myself. Because I could see that this is all bullshit, man. I could see that this is not the truth. It cannot be the truth, right? I'll say something that might offend people, right? But I'll say that anyway. You did not have to convince me that a monkey did not go and lift an entire mountain and bring it to from North India to South India or whatnot. You won't have to convince me that that is a story, right? You're getting it, right? I'm saying something that is offensive, but it's true,
Yeah.
man. We should not be having those conversations in 2023, right? It's like if I told you that there is Albus Dumbledore lives in such and such a place. How will you convince me otherwise? I have just convinced myself that Albus Dumbledore lives. Albus Dumbledore was a character in a story. Even if the story was written on, if the underlying story was a true story, Albus Dumbledore, those words represent a character in the story, man. It cannot be important. What is important is what is true. Talk to me
Yeah.
about the truth, right? And that is where, if you're talking about the idea of God, start with the idea of what is true, not with the idea of who said what is true. And then I'll respect that person, or I'll respect that God. I'll start worshipping that God, which is where people go wrong. You know, like I said, in I think a few days back, I messaged you, right? One of the key things that is wrong with religion is more focus on the messengers than the
Yeah.
message.
Than the message. Yeah, of
Because
course.
we want to worship gods. We want to worship who came to us as a messenger, right? Damn it, listen to the message and act on the message. That is what the real messengers also want, right? But हो ये जाता है कि we start focusing so much on the message, on the
Yeah.
messenger, क्योंकि that is what makes that idea of ego feel safe, you know. Oh, there
Yeah.
is a god above us who's going to take care of me. I'm going to worship him. I'm going to fall down to him on my knees and all of that. And if you don't do that, I'm going to make you do that. In the name of love, I'm going to make you do that because I love you. I want you to fear that God. Uh, You can see right through the game. You can see right through the game. And that is why people turn atheists, right? But the level goes a little bit more deeper, right? It's like there is this quote, I don't remember the exact words, but it says, the first touch of natural sciences, the first sip from the cup of natural sciences will make you an atheist. But at the end of the cup, God is waiting for you. And that is absolutely true. That's absolutely true. And why do I say that? I'm going to keep going now. See, if you're an atheist right now in the present world, what you're basically doing is you're rejecting the misinterpretations and the misrepresentations of the word God, right? You're rejecting
Yeah.
all of them, which is right. You have to do that. But the game doesn't stop there, man. You have to go deeper. Just because you proved a misinterpretation to be wrong doesn't mean you now have the truth. It is still
Yeah.
work left to be done. Get to the truth. And when you get to the truth, you get to God. You get to God. That is what all the real messengers who said things like Jesus Christ, Buddha, I think even Prophet Muhammad, all of those messengers, Krishna, Ram, everyone pointed to the same message. And you have to get there kind of on your own. It's a journey that you have to take, but you have to do that. Otherwise, you are kind of superficial, and that is what is all being done by almost everyone. We write
Yeah.
books about so many different things, religion ke naam pe, but almost everyone is disenfranchised because that idea of religion is basically just based on one aspect, which is bhakti yoga. It's an aspect of worshipping an external god, worshipping a personal god. But of course, that cannot be true. That cannot be the last level. And in fact, even within Hinduism, man, if you read, if you want to actually explore Hinduism, want to actually read, see, I don't want to talk about Hinduism. I'll say if you actually want to read about what is true, read Swami Vivekananda. Just
Okay.
have a little dive into what he talked about in his books, especially the book called Gyan Yoga, where
Hmm.
he will not tell you what Hinduism is all about. He will talk about what is true. He will not have to mention all the different gods to actually lead you to God, right? Because
Hmm.
he understands that all of those gods, all of those forms are actually just a means to an end, not the end in themselves.
Yeah.
वो जो सारे means हैं, हनुमान, Krishna, Ram, all of these forms are a means to the end, not the end in themselves. And that
Yeah.
is what we miss out on. अगर हम बातें सिर्फ इन फॉर्म्स की करते रहें, तो we tend to start to see that this is the end also, but it's not,
Yeah, you
right?
miss out on the
I think,
idea, and you need to step back
uh,
to maybe get to the present. Where you need to take two steps back
yes,
to move ahead.
yeah,
It's that
yeah,
ideology.
exactly.
Sometimes I feel like
Huh.
once I was also wondering about this, that if only I can stay with my breath, I would have stayed throughout my life. Like if only I
Mm,
can be conscious of each and every breath that I
mm,
take, then I would have
mm,
stayed present in my whole life. And you
yeah,
can't just do that only if you were able to.
uh,
Then all life becomes is just another breath, right? Like imagine
exactly.
how much anxiety does it take away, that you just have to take the next correct breath. And that's all you have to do, because that's all you can do.
And that is the solution, man, to a lot of depression and anxiety that humans are facing in this age. You know, we can't get a moment's rest to actually sit back and breathe. Laptop se hate to phone se hate to a triggering conversation in the news se
Yeah.
hate to a triggering conversation with someone who was watching that damn news. तो खत्म ही नहीं. You never take a deep breath and realize कि I am projecting so much on the world is projecting so much on me. Maybe I should just take a step back and unlearn जो चीजें मैंने सीख
Yeah.
ली हैं, because that is what is blocking me now, right? That is the solution of so much depression and anxiety. And again, that is the work I do with people now. For a lot of
Hmm.
people, man, like we talked about in the beginning, right? Whether it is the external world influencing you or whether it is you influencing your own decisions, the actions always lie at you influencing your own decisions. But it's a matter of perspective. You have to first unlearn the idea that the
Hmm.
external world is, all of those people are trying to act out how you are acting here, right? So you
Yeah.
cannot
Yeah.
control them, you cannot control them, but आप यहाँ पे अपने actions को control करो. Try to look at what is happening within you. Why are these thoughts coming up? And let go of the thoughts that are not serving you, let go of the biases that are not serving you, and slowly but surely even those thoughts stop popping up into your minds. That is how it works. That is self growth,
Amazing.
man. That
Yeah, amazing
mm,
conversation with you today, Chetan. It actually blew my mind away, because we didn't plan going from one place
mm,
to the other. We just thought we'll have a sit and talk about
yeah,
God. But it went
mm,
from creativity to curiosity to life and philosophy and whatnot. And the two words
yeah,
that I actually am taking away with it is truth and utility.
yeah,
They're so impactful once you think about them. And everything can
yes.
be viewed by the lens, or that, what do you call, the taraju, in through
Mm-hmm.
which you can either check the what level of truth are you looking for and what level of utility are you looking for. I think we
Correct,
can
correct.
probably name this episode on those terms as well.
Yes, definitely. And in closing, I would also like to say that, the idea of God, the truth about God, rather, is something that I have explored a lot and I've shared in a lot of my podcast episodes. In fact, a third of my podcast is dedicated to the idea of God, the idea of
Hmm.
understanding true religion and true spirituality. It takes time, though. I mean, even here, when we were talking about it, it takes a lot of segues, because the idea itself is complicated and we human beings are so complicated right now कि simple चीजें हमें समझ नहीं आती आराम से.
Yeah.
तो but I would like to say to your audience that if anyone is interested in actually exploring and understanding, letting go of your own biases and understanding what really is the idea of God, the truth about God, they can check out my podcast or they can
Yeah,
reach
of
out to me.
course.
In fact, I'm always open to honest and engaging conversations.
Yeah, of
So
course. I would urge anyone to who wants to get like another insight on how perspectives can shift should definitely check out your content. And the way you presented it,
mm,
it's so simple and it's so intuitive that I
thank
sometimes
you, man.
find myself getting very intellectually stimulated by hearing what you talk about. It was great
Thank you,
talking to
man.
you,
Thank you.
Chetan. Thank you so much for taking the time out to do this. And
Same here,
yeah.
man. Lovely conversation as always. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Ethan.
Until next
Bye.
time, peace out.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty much it for this conversation for now. I hope you could derive some learnings, unlearnings, or at least deep thinking from what we talked about. I personally feel that we need to have more such stimulating conversations on the internet, on our public platforms, so that our public discourse becomes less superficial and more honest and open about more ideas, about truths, right? So make sure you spread the word, make sure you share it with as many people as you can, or at least with people who you think would be stimulated by this. And if you are one of those people who actually found the content resonating, there is a whole playlist of mine which I've dedicated to the idea of God, true spirituality, and true religion. It would be appearing on your screens right now, or if you're consuming this on a podcast platform, of course, it would be available in the show notes below. Make sure you check it out. Make sure you give it some really deep thought that it needs and requires. And if you want to delve into it one on one with me, of course, there are ways to do that. There is my one on one sessions that I take. You can find out the link in the show notes below. Or you can even hit me up on Instagram. Just send me a DM. I make sure I check out each and every one of them and respond back appropriately. So share this video, like the video, leave me a comment, let me know that you appreciate the content, and I'll see you in the playground the next time. Until next time, peace out.